Welcome, everyone. Go ahead and take a seat. Whether you're newly arrived here at the Unclaimed Hall, or you're just brushing up on our history, today's explainer covers the absolute foundation of our existence. We're going to dive deep into this fascinating and, honestly, terrifying phenomenon known as the First Scatter. This was that miraculous season in our history where sheer mortal desperation suddenly birthed unborrowed magic. So, settle in, because we're going to look really closely at what it actually means to hold power that belongs entirely to you.
Now, to really understand the First Scatter, you have to picture the world before the Grey Orchard event. For centuries, magic was incredibly strict. It was highly organized. It was either handed down by the 72 demonic crowns, bestowed through these rigid, holy hierarchies of angels, or woven into the ancient, patient cycles of nature. You had to have permission. But then suddenly, in a completely plain, unprotected city called Grey Orchard, ordinary humans broke literally all the rules. And it forces us to ask the very question that shook heaven, hell, and earth. What exactly happens when mortal desperation strikes back at those ancient powers?
To grasp this whole socio-magical system, here is our path today. We'll cover 1. The anomaly of raw power. 2. How trauma shapes the gift. 3. Resisting external control. 4. The physical and moral cost. 5. Discipline through daily labor. And finally, 6. Community, witness, and the codex. Let's start right at the beginning with Section 1. The anomaly of raw power. Unborrowed gifts after the Grey Orchard event.
This quote right here brilliantly illustrates exactly what terrified those ancient kingdoms. We're talking about magic without bloodline, temple, contract, crown, or prophecy. You see, the demons selected Grey Orchard specifically because it was plain. It was just a city of fruit merchants and roofers. They wanted a helpless experiment. But instead, when they applied unbearable pressure to these people, the humans there didn't break. They combusted. This human power had absolutely no structure and, most importantly, required no permission from higher beings. Angels couldn't just bless it, and demons couldn't bargain with it. It was completely outside their control.
Moving on to Section 2, how trauma shapes the gift and the emotional wounds that fuel the flame. Let's look at 3 profound case studies from Grey Orchard: Sela, Bran, and Nereus. As you'll see, their unique gifts didn't just appear out of nowhere. They emerged directly from their specific personal crises. Sela Vorn, her demons naming the failures of adults around her, trying to break their spirits. She shouted a single refusal to protect her brother. Her trauma was refusing that demonic accusation, and her resulting gift, the gate voice, literally closes unseen passages and temptations. Then we have Bran Eister. He spent his whole life apologizing for a crippled leg. But when he heard a trapped father plea for his daughter, his sheer desire to share that man's pain birthed burden blood. This grants him immense physical strength, but only when he's carrying pain for another person. And finally, little Nereus Vale. He was hiding in absolute terror from horned illusions, gripping a white pebble so hard his palm bled. His terror of the false birthed the stone eye, which allows him to see the empty hooks behind demonic masks. So you see, their specific emotional wounds directly dictated the very shape and nature of their unborrowed gifts.
Now, the crucial takeaway here, and please listen closely to this, is that human raw power is never, ever a reward for pain. That is a cruel misunderstanding we absolutely must avoid. It is a rare combustion of will, need, identity, and circumstance. It's a highly unpredictable reaction to being crushed between greater forces. You cannot artificially manufacture this without destroying the very humanity it stems from.
This brings us to Section 3, resisting external control. Here's why demons and angels cannot rule the awakened.
Just notice the stark divide we're looking at here. Over on the left, you have the ancient powers. Demons relying on strict contracts and bargains. Angels relying on sacred command and structured descents of holy light. They love their predictable patterns. But on the right, human raw power is entirely unborrowed. Because these powers were born from the unresolved self rather than some sort of legal pact, they inherently resisted being controlled by existing hierarchies. Think about it. If a demon tried to seize an awakened human's core, the power might just explode or go completely silent simply because it was rooted in mortal refusal, not obedience. They just couldn't own it.
To put that into perspective, ask yourself this: why did a holy command fail against a tired mortal? Well, shortly after Great Orchard, a messenger of the Angelic Sixth Watch actually tried to test Silivorn's protection. The angel spoke a minor command of stillness, just trying to calm a crowd. But Selah, who was exhausted and suspicious, simply refused it, and for one breath, the angel's command completely failed. Selah's sheer exhaustion literally interrupted an angel's sacred command. This proved once and for all that raw power could challenge even benevolent forces if they entered human life without consent. And let me tell you, that moment absolutely shook heaven's councils.
Which leads us into some darker territory with Section 4, the physical and moral cost. The danger of the wrong awakenings. You have to understand that raw power doesn't just automatically purify your motives. It actually exacts a really harsh physical toll. Every true refusal literally tears the warmth from Selah's voice. If she uses it too much, she loses the ability to comfort entirely. Bran's bones literally crack and repair themselves under the immense weight he has to carry. And morally, it's even more dangerous. What we call wrong awakenings happen when power magnifies human distortion. For instance, there was a tax collector named Davin Ors who awakened the weight of debt and used it to paralyze widows who questioned his accounts. Another grieving father actually forced strangers to mourn his dead son until they collapsed. Unchecked power, even born from pain, breeds immense possessiveness and pride.
So how do we handle that? That's Section 5, Discipline Through Daily Labor, the Unclaimed Hall's incredibly mundane solution. This defining philosophy is painted right above our entrance. Nurse Fail put it there. Power does not make you less responsible for being human. To combat this terrifying moral decay, Ilyanmar refused to build a fortress or some grand temple. Instead, he rented an abandoned grain exchange. This meant that an awakened human was never to be treated as a magical tool or a weapon for a greater kingdom. We are not celestial lanterns. We are people. And how exactly do we enforce that humanity? Well, not with combat training, but with the mundane chores you see listed here. We cook together without using our gifts. We repair the leaking roof by hand. We carry water manually. You might be wondering why we do this. It's because demons love powerful people who can't even wash a bowl without making it symbolic. By practicing these specific shared daily tasks, you learn patience. You learn relationship with your body and with your neighbor. These communal work sessions are absolutely crucial because they ground you. They physically prevent your ego from twisting your miraculous gifts into demonic pride. And I'll tell you, this communal grounding proved absolutely vital. One night, a demonic envoy carrying the crown of 72 questions managed to infiltrate the hall during supper. It went around and whispered a customized temptation to every single person's specific emotional wound. The room shook, powers trembled, but look at the sequence of actions Ilian commanded. He didn't tell them to fight back with magic. No, he told them to listen and then share the temptation aloud with the community using simple truth, not power. Selah admitted she wondered why she should refuse for others when no one ever refused for her. By doing this, they broke the isolation, and instantly, the demon's power shattered. They defeated a demonic test simply by refusing to be alone with their pride.
Let's wrap up with Section 6, Community, Witness, and the Codex, safeguarding our humanity.
We have two primary ethical guidelines to ensure power serves the community. The first is the practice of witness. Since raw power so easily lies to the person wielding it, telling you that you're perfectly just and right, no awakened human here is allowed to explain their own power alone. You must sit and listen as others describe exactly what your power does to them. It forces the awakened to face the actual reality of their actions through the eyes of their peers. It really is the ultimate defense against self-deception and the distortion of raw power.
Furthermore, we have the first scatter codex. Mira Das wrote this entirely on sheet paper. It documents awakenings, costs, and triggers. But as you can see by its design, the codex is exclusively meant to prevent practitioner isolation. It is never to be used as a grimoire or some kind of manual to force an awakening. It was written for a very specific reason, so that a person in a distant village whose hands suddenly burn blue with fear can read it and know for sure they aren't alone in their strangeness. The codex doesn't try to domesticate raw power, it gives it memory, and it builds a community instead of a hierarchy.
You know, even a repentant fallen angel contributed to our codex, leaving us with this really profound advice. Do not teach mortals to hate the part of themselves that saved them. Teach them to ask what it cost. Ultimately, the true challenge of the first scatter wasn't defeating ancient monsters. It was, and still is, mastering the daily discipline to remain thoroughly, compassionately human while carrying impossible force. We must never become the shape our wound demands. Which leaves us with a fascinating psychological mirror as we wrap up this explainer today. I want you to think about your own life, your own deepest hurts. If you awakened unborrowed power right now, right here in this room, what shape would your wound demand? And honestly, more importantly, would you have the discipline to go wash a bowl by hand afterward? Keep that in mind as you head off to your chores today. Thank you so much for learning with me.